The title of today is Degradation or Revelation of Moshe's True Character. The shir revolves around a number of topics. One of the central topics, of course, is the esoteric section dealing with Miriam's supposed criticism of Moshe Rabbeinu. The point of departure will be Parshas Shlach, and it says, "Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe leimer," that His Baruch spoke to Moshe, and he said, "Shlach lecho anoshim v'yosu et eretz Canaan, she'ani noisen lifnei Yisrael, ish echad lemata avosov tishlochu." Of course, this is the famous Parsha section dealing with the spies, and of course, Rashi already pointed out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not command. It was not a command. Shlach lecho anoshim v'yosuhu, as Eretz Canaan, is not a command. It's a reshus. It's a grant of permission that if the Jewish people decide to send spies on a military expedition to see which would be the strategic route that the Jewish people should follow insofar as preparing for the capture of Eretz Israel, so I will not prevent them. It will not be an impediment for them or obstacle. They can go ahead and do it, but it is not a tzivui, it is not a positive commandment, even though we could make a mistake and say that it says shlach lecho anoshim, so it sounds like it's a command, but we have many cases like that. It says, so far as appointing a king is concerned, sim tosim alecho melech, which sounds like it's a command, and the Chazal, Torah Shebaal Peh, learned it's only a reshus. It's a grant of permission, basically a concession to the frailty of Am Yisrael. They want to be like other nations. They want to have a monarchy. So the Baruch Hu will not prevent this from happening, but it is not a commandment. Of course, Parshas Shlach and the sending of the spies to Eretz Canaan follows a very esoteric section. On that, there's no question about it. That was the supposed criticism that Miriam told Aaron vis-a-vis their brother Moshe. So Rashi elaborates and elucidates this strange juxtaposition. And Rashi says, "Loma nismach parshas meraglim leparshas Miriam." What is the reasoning, the rationale behind the fact that Parshas Meraglim follows Parshas Miriam, which in the 6 daily remembrances, we remember what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to Miriam. He punished Miriam quite severely with leprosy for speaking derogatory of Moshe Rabbeinu. So, Lama Nismach Parshas Meraglim, Parshas Miriam, she was punished for the slander that she spoke against her brother. These evil people, and they did not derive a lesson. The Meraglim are called Rishayim, and they did not derive a lesson from Miriam. Ostensibly, Rashi seems to say that they spoke Lashon Hara on Eretz Israel. However, it's much more than that. And the truth is, we do not understand the comparison at all. It's a Medrash Tanchuma. She spoke against her brother, and these wicked people witnessed it, and they did not derive a lesson from it. So there seems to be some sort of common denominator in these two episodes. It's as she protested against the personal behavior of Moshe Rabbeinu. So if that was the gist of Miriam's verbal expression, some sort of remarks concerning the personal behavior of Moshe Rabbeinu vis-a-vis his wife, Kadosh Baruch Hu spoke to us, not become ascetics in the sense that we still have the normal shaychasin that normal people have. Moshe Rabbeinu decided to separate from his wife, even though he had greater kedusha than us. But we also have kedusha, gambonu diber Hashem, like the pasuk says, and nevertheless we remain family-oriented people. So this is a simple observation which Miriam mentioned to Aaron. No more than that. We do not see the severity of it. We don't understand what prompted her to make such an observation, because Miriam is not a person that's given to banalities. And the way we understand it, Miriam and Aaron would not discuss a private matter that Moshe Rabbeinu is, so to speak, conducting himself. We don't understand Bechlal why Miriam mentioned it, but that's beside the point. We do not see this as something severe. Insofar as the Meraglim are concerned, their refusal to enter Eretz Yisrael is just as the pasuk says explicitly, Uba Hashem al timroidu, do not rebel against the wishes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the destination that HaKadosh Baruch Hu selected for the Jewish people when they were liberated from Mitzrayim. So, like the Kuzbi says, every nation needs a country, and the country that was designated for the Jewish people is Eretz Yisrael. And that was the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So by refusing to come into Eretz Yisrael, ipso facto, they rebelled against the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moired b'malchus shamayim. A very severe Aveira. So we do not understand the comparison. It's two separate matters entirely. One deals with negating willingly the destiny of the Jewish people, which will ultimately come to its great destiny in Eretz Yisrael. There'll be a Beis Hamikdash. Ultimately, the eschatological age will produce Melech Mashiach in Eretz Yisrael. That's the Mokum Vashros Hashchina. The Ramban also tells us that's the Mokum. That is the place, consciousness that every Jew has to believe in. This is the place where we're obligated in entire Yag Mitzvah. So Chutz La'aretz, it's a different type of commitment. But here there's the real commitment, and here's the real observance, and here's the real Kiyum HaMitzvah. So we do not understand the common denominator. As we mentioned a moment ago, the words is something which we do not understand at all. Insofar as the commentators are concerned, so they viewed it as a type of slander, Lashon Hara. Now we know that Lashon Hara on occasion could be true, but most of the time it's false spoken verbal statements. On occasion it could be true. And when it's true, so usually, if not exclusively, Lashon Hara is said maliciously, viciously, with the intent to defame and degrade the subject that the Lashon Hara is directed to. If Miriam was guilty of slander of Lashon Hara, so we have to come to the normative conclusion that she had an intent to damage the personal reputation of Moshe Rabbeinu. We do not see that. If she'll be accused of Lashon Hara, of slander, we do not see any intent on Miriam's part to demean Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't believe that it's possible that she would do such a thing. It's in the realm of impossibilities. And in addition to that, we don't see any verbal words of defamation. It simply says, "Vatedaber Miriam ba'Aaron b'Moshe Al oides isha kushas shalokach isha kushas lokach. Vayoyim harak ach Moshe diber Hashem. Haloi gam banu diber. Vayishma Hashem. All Miriam and Aaron said was that he was married to a very great woman, and the Lord has spoken to us and to Moshe. Charechter did not only speak to Moshe, he spoke to us. And we maintain family relationships. And afterwards, the Torah tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu was an Odov Mikol Adam, exceedingly humble. And therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu had to intervene on his behalf because he was insulted and there were words of offense. And like the Ramban says, there's no way that Moshe Rabbeinu would have in any way responded, even if it would be in front of him. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah tells us now, was exceedingly humble in order to explain why Kadosh Baruch Hu had to intervene on his behalf to defend his honor and call upon Aaron and Miriam and accuse them of slander. Kadosh Baruch Hu had to do it because at this point, the Torah is telling us that Moshe's humility is so great that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu had not taken up his cause, so he would not have reacted to any personal attack, not now and not ever. Therefore, Vayishma Hashem, Hashem heard, and he subsequently undertook what HaKadosh Baruch Hu felt was the right thing to do at the time. Of course, we, at this juncture, based on the Ramban's comment, we see that it was possible that it was Lashon Hara. It's a possibility. Insofar as the Torah tells us, Lashon Hara dafke is learned from Makareu B'Seisa, smiting somebody secretly. In other words, Lashon Hara is basically an Aveira that was directed against a coward, a person that did not want to confront an individual. So behind his back, surreptitiously, he tries to damage and harm his reputation. Makareu B'Seisa. He smites him. He damages him. How? B'Seisa, secretly, because he's afraid to do it face to face. Does not want a confrontation. And the Gemara tells us that Amar Rabbi Yossi, I never spoke to my friend and looked backwards. Says Rashi, what's the pshat? Because the usual fashion of the sapre, Lashon Hara, those that speak derogatorily about somebody else, is in the middle of their remarks. They look backwards over their shoulder to see whether he is looking, whether he's close enough to overhear what he's saying. So Rabbi Yossi said he never spoke Lashon Hara. How did he say that? I never spoke to anybody, any words, any verbal expression, and I looked backwards. No, I didn't speak Lashon Hara because B'Seisa is part of the very Aveira of Lashon Hara. And here, according to the Ramban, Moshe did not hear. But the Ramban brings the Sifri, Moshe heard. It's as if they spoke to Moshe directly. It wasn't indirectly. It's like they were encountering Moshe and there was a type of confrontation. So that can't be Lashon Hara. So we don't understand exactly according to the Sifri, which the Rambam brings down. Can't argue on the Sifri. So we don't understand what the Chet of Miriam was. It was not regular Lashon Hara. True. Even according to the Sifri, Moshe suffered this insult in silence, but we don't know exactly what the gist of this insult basically consisted of. We don't understand it. Another question that has to be addressed is exactly why did Miriam now speak against Moshe? We asked before that Miriam as the Mefarshim pointed out, it's difficult to understand how Miriam, who was a sister already when she was a little girl, but Miriam Ladas, she wanted to know when he was cast in the Nile River, what's going to be with him. His mother and father, as it were, resigned themselves to Moshe's fate. As a little baby, they abandoned the baby in the Nile River. And the only one that showed concern, even when she was a little girl, for the welfare of Moshe Rabbeinu, as he was a baby, it was a baby, literally. He was a baby, was Miriam. So all of a sudden, Miriam should now do a malicious act? That we don't understand. Number two, why is it brought down now? What prompted it at this point in the order of the parashas? And the truth of the matter is, we can ask this question differently. Why is this closely related to the previous parasha of Kivrei Sataiva? We have a parasha in the Torah, something which is difficult to understand how the Dardeya could sink to such a low level. By Yihiyom can be signed in Bozdei Hashem. Vayishma Hashem vayicha rapo vativa bo'ameish. V'asafsuf asher bekil b'yasavu taiva. V'yashuv vayifku gam b'nei Yisrael miyachelenu basa. So the pasuk says, his avu taiva. Not that they had a taiva. The Alshach said they had a taiva to have taivas. It's as if they tried to invent artificial means of satiating their carnal desires. Afterwards, they wanted to marry their sisters. They were interested in simply writing a new morality, rejecting the Torah totally, so far as morality is concerned. Arias is concerned. They wanted unlimited lust to do whatever they decided they wanted to do based on their carnal desires and urges. In other words, they abandoned all types of morality. They were pirate oil. They took up the oil of morality and they longed for boundless desires of the flesh. All of a sudden, we don't know how this happened, but this is the facts. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was usually very patient. Immediately, the wrath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu blazed forth and destroyed them. This is called Kivrei Hataiva. This is a section which deals with boundless, endless lust, thirst for carnal pleasure, and very difficult to understand how Klal Yisrael came to this madriga. Immediately following this section, before the section dealing with Miriam, so we have a section dealing with Moshe's resignation as the Manig Yisrael. Moshe at this time, the Torah tells us very, very figuratively that Moshe Rabbeinu decided to resign. Vayomer Moshe el Hashem, lama harayois l'avdecha, lama tzasichem beinecha. Did I conceive this nation? Did I give birth to them? You should say to me, that I should carry them like a nursing mother carries her little child. And if you reject my plea, I cannot continue to shoulder the burden of this nation. It's too heavy for me, the burden. Hargeni nohoroi, kill me. I don't want to live. So Moshe Rabbeinu's response is very, very difficult to understand. Moshe complains bitterly of his lot as a ruler of the Jewish people appointed by the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Instead of defending them, like he did by the Charechter Egel, he's accusing them. And he actually says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have dealt very evil with your servant Moshe. Why did I not enjoy your favoritism? I didn't conceive this people. I didn't give birth to them. Moshe becomes so shaken, so despondent, and so complaining, he condemns the people out of the depths of Yush, of resignation, and if he will not be relieved of his duties of leadership, he prefers death to further responsibility as Manig Yisrael. Difficult to understand. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Pasuk tells us, heeded his request. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him 70 elders. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's compromise. You stay on as the manik, and we'll give you 70 elders, special people. They were Charechter, they were the people that suffered in Mitzrayim. They're the people that were willing to take the lashes instead of the Jewish people. They were the commanders of the Jewish people appointed by the Egyptians, and they're the ones that suffered the lashes to protect the Jewish people. So we see these are people that are on a very high moral, spiritual level, people that performed the Sirus Nefesh to protect the welfare of the Jewish people. So they were appointed. And all of a sudden, after Kivras HaTaiva, and the solution that HaKadosh Baruch Hu found to keep Moshe as the manik, you won't be the manik yourself. On that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu acquiesced. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu suggest? They'll have 70 elders that will help him insofar as the leadership role is concerned. Very good. So we found a solution to the problem. And all of a sudden, the Torah tells us very abruptly, but the Daber, Aaron, and Miriam, a verbal attack, the way the Chazal understand it, on Moshe Rabbeinu. What is the juxtaposition between the section dealing with Miriam's criticism and Kivras HaTaiva and the solution to the problem that it should not happen again, because we'll have Shivim Ish that will bet Moshe, will aid Moshe, and they'll make sure that Klal Yisrael does not sink to such low levels. Chazal don't ask the question, we ask the question. Chazal just asks, what's the juxtaposition? What is the thematic connection between Meraglim and Miriam? The answer would appear to be that Miriam indeed spoke against Moshe Rabbeinu. Not in the derogatory way, no intent to demean him, to degrade him. Miriam, who was also concerned with the Jewish people's welfare, was a prosecuting attorney. She was not a defense attorney, did not defend Moshe. She was as if she was a prosecuting attorney, and she hurled an accusation that Moshe Rabbeinu is responsible for Kivras HaTaiva. And she questioned Moshe's personal behavior within the context of holding him blameworthy for the entire episode of Kivras HaTaiva, which, no question about it, was destructive, not for those that were killed, but also for Klal Yisrael, when the Klal Yisrael saw such a departure from normalism into an animalistic type of culture of trying to satisfy their appetites for pleasure and carnal gratification. So what is the basic accusation? So they told us Yankiv Yosef in his Sefer, which is called Told us Yankiv Yosef, told us already based on the Rambam and other Rishonim that a Manig Yisrael has to be concerned with everyone, every single individual. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves every single Jewish person, unlimited love. Likewise, a Manig has to love, be connected emotionally and mentally to every single Jew, even the lowest element of the Jewish people. And of course, they told us, proves it from Rashi. Rashi says later on, should be a successor to Moshe Rabbeinu. When Yeshua was chosen, he was, why? Because he's a Isha Sher Ruach Boy, says Rashi, that he has the ability, every single individual, manhigim, of the stature of Moshe Rabbeinu, his successor Yeshua, were connected. They worried for them. They wanted to educate them to become refined spiritual people. Not just the great scholar they dealt with, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Ziknei Yom, or other elements of Klal Yisrael's population that were Bale Madrego, but it's necessary everyone should be treated equally by the Manig Yisrael. Therefore, Miriam, Aaron said, an absolutely correct observation in the context of holding Moshe Rabbeinu blameworthy. Moshe Rabbeinu reached such madregas of Kedusha that he divested himself of all normal shaykhs that a man has with the family, even with the family. And like the Zohar once said, Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't know what happened to him. He reached such madregas of transcendence, of Kedusha. We don't even begin to understand these madregas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was speaking within the throat of Moshe Rabbeinu. And because he reached such high, lofty, exalted madregas, so he cannot lower himself to deal with such a low element. It's not possible. Has nothing to do to willpower. It's not a question whether he wills or he doesn't will. He just can't do it. He'll lose his madregas. And Moshe Rabbeinu is from the Bnei Aliyah. He's continually going up madregas. So he's responsible. That's the juxtaposition to Parashas Miriam. And Miriam did not in any way degrade the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu. On the contrary, Miriam agreed, and Aaron surely consented that Moshe Rabbeinu was on such lofty madregas. Pel peh adaber boy, kish medaber el chaveiro. Because spoke to him like he was a regular friend of his, normal friendship, a comrade in arms to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was Moshe Rabbeinu. He reached the summit. No other person came so close to being a complete spiritual being, as the Meshech Chochmah says in the beginning of Shemais, he had no Bechibur Chofshis. Indeed, a sweeping statement, but that's the truth. Now, we can understand exactly what transpired. So, if this was their statement, and they knew that Moshe was greater than them, but the impact of a Kadosh Baruch Hu having a unique relationship with Anoshim, with people that reach such levels of Kedusha, brought about a tragedy. So to replace Moshe is not possible. Yisrael can't go without Moshe. And with Moshe, it is very possible there'll be a repeat of Kibbutz Hatayba, because Moshe Rabbeinu, when these base carnal desires arise, will not get their proper treatment, and therefore there could be another tragedy. We already have Shivim Ish. It could be that won't be enough. Could be they will not be able also to deal with the matter. So what was so terrible about this? She said they spoke to the point. We saw in our own day and age that you have Admoirim, Rosh Yeshivas that are very, very holy and reach very high madrigas of scholarship, of righteousness, that they can't lower themselves, not in an arrogant way. They simply can't lower themselves to speak on a level of a bacher who doesn't have a proper background, and he's unfortunately not on a very high level, and he's a lot of educational tools applied to him to raise him to a regular level, and he's not going to get it because these people just can't do it. So why was Miriam punished? What did he do wrong? What did she do wrong? The answer is that it was a mistake, a very bad mistake. Everything that Miriam said is true for somebody who's not Moshe Rabbeinu. For a manik, a regular leader of Klal Yisrael, where that strong outreach to every individual is required, like in a yeshiva. So if that person reached Rosh Yeshiva, reached Roim Kedusha, came to the highest level of holiness and sanctity, he cannot lower himself. The result, of course, will be that these individuals will go without any help in their hour of moral need. However, Moshe Rabbeinu is not a regular manik. Moshe Rabbeinu has koiches that we don't understand b'chlal his koiches to be mashpia on Klal Yisrael. But who can he be mashpia on? Miraculously, Shalai Kederach Hateva, not according to the rules of nature. That's how great he is, Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest of all. Manhigim and mashpiyim, only if they're mevatel daito to his anhoga. They accept Moshe Rabbeinu. They don't question Moshe Rabbeinu. Everything Moshe Rabbeinu lectures, says, teaches, they accept, with no exceptions whatsoever. If we take a look at Rashi, so Rashi says, who was responsible? Hasafsuf, the Erev Rav. Because the Erev Rav, according to Rashi, were never mekabel the authority of Moshe Rabbeinu. They did not negate their intellect to Moshe Rabbeinu. They were always rebellious, incalcitrants. And had it not been for Moshe Rabbeinu, it would have been much worse. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is a manik shaloi kederech hateva. And when it's shaloi kederech hateva, you have no questions to ask. You have no remarks to make. because you will not understand it anyway. So the time of Miriam and Aaron is, you don't have to understand Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is not an address for your criticism. Moshe Rabbeinu does not have to rationalize himself. He does not have to explain himself. Who told him that he should divest himself of all shaykhs and that a normal family man has? HaKadosh Baruch Hu ve'ata poi amoidi modi. There was Rasan Abayre. So everything Moshe Rabbeinu did, he only did it. Al Pi Hashem, it was a mitzvah. It was a command direct from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to do so. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu realized what Miriam and Aaron realized. That he will have no kesher, he will have no connection with the lowest rank of the Jewish people that are in desperate need to be aroused out of their slumber and to come to some sort of madrega in Torah and fear of heaven. No question about it. But Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness lies in that he can have an effect on every single person, even though it appears to the naked eye that he has no connection with him. He connects with him. He has an impact on him. Do we understand it? No, but we accept it. Because not everything has to be understood, and not everything has to be explained. We'll accept it even though we don't understand. And my father used to say, if you don't understand, Hashem, so you're not obligated to understand. If I'm not obligated to understand, I don't want to understand it. That should have been the reaction. We don't want to understand Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu, after everything is said and done, so the Gemara tells us something remarkable, that Moshe Rabbeinu, Gemara is in Sanhedrin, Daf Tez Zayin. So the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu had a koyach of Bezdin Agoda B'Yerushalayim. And what exactly is the authority of Bezdin Agoda B'Yerushalayim? So the pasuk and the Gemara tells us, Al pi ha'Torah sheyarucha, v'al hamishpat asher yomer lecha ta'aseh. Whatever they tell you, whatever their instructions are, you must abide by it. Says Rashi, the famous Gemara, that even Bezdin not going to tell you that your right hand is your left hand is your right hand. Do not divert from their instructions. You put on tefillin on your right arm. Because there's no questions on that's not going to be Yerushalayim. On Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't try to understand. And it's interesting that the scientists have proved beyond any doubt that if you have a submarine with a periscope, so the more the periscope extends vertically, the deeper it can see in the sea. This is to be understood as an illustration. The greater Moshe Rabbeinu is, the great dizzying heights that he attains, so he can see deeper in Klal Yisrael, and he can mashpia, he can forcibly have an impact on the Jewish people. And that was there. They were absolutely right. Kedusha Soy Lamala from the Kedusha any other person ever attained. But we're not dealing with Derech HaTeva here. He's not a normal manik. A normal manik is a valid criticism, and indeed it expresses a care, concern, and compassion for Klal Yisrael. Here we're not dealing with that. And that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu has to, as it were, enumerate all the milas of Moshe Rabbeinu, all his attributes. He is different than anyone else. You cannot evaluate him according to regular criterion and measurements of a normal man. He's above and beyond. And the order of the day is not to ask questions, not to criticize, except because you won't understand it anyway. It's beyond us. And that's exactly what Rashi says. The common denominator between the Chet HaMeraglim and the Chet of Miriam and Aaron is identical. Why did Klal Yisrael not want to come into Eretz Yisrael? Kadosh Baruch Hu told them this is the promised land, Eretz Yisrael. They already knew that. They had no doubts about it. The Raglim said, as I already said, they had their own personal self-serving interests. So why did they not want to come into Eretz Yisrael? Because the Sas Emes tells us that they preferred being in the Midbar, where all of their needs were provided for in a miraculous way. Mon min hashamayim, Be'ereshel Miriam, Ananei Yaakov surrounded them. Everything was miraculous, and they knew in Eretz Yisrael it's going to be b'derech hateva. It will not be a supernatural existence. And they also knew that Eretz Yisrael is Eser Kedusha, you say. There are 10 levels of holiness. Eretz Yisrael Kudeshes Mikol Ha'amim. And they also knew that they were going to have to conform to the standards of Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael has an Neshama, has 10 levels of Kedusha, and they're going to have to conduct themselves accordingly without supernatural means to fulfill and gratify their basic table of needs. What happens if, unfortunately, they are not going to be able to, so to speak, abide by the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Eretz Yisrael? So Eretz Yisrael's Kedusha cannot tolerate sinners. And Rashi says it's like a Ben Melech has a delicate constitution, and if he eats a food that's not properly prepared, he'll vomit it out. So that's what Klal Yisrael were afraid of. They were afraid of going down from Anhogas Nisis to Anhogas Tivis be'eretz HaKodesh. If it would be Syria, Lebanon, they would not be afraid, because these countries do not have the Eser Kedushas. It's not a Mokem Vashchos HaShchino. There will be no Beis HaMikdash in these countries. But in Eretz Yisrael, there will be. And that requires a tremendous amount of Avodas Hashem. They're not roy for it. Therefore, they didn't want to come. So all of these calculations are B'derech HaTeva. But Kadosh Baruch Hu told you to go to Eretz Yisrael. This is the destiny and the destination. This is where everything will transpire and unfold till Bias HaMashiach. This is the center of the world. Agan Asal. Even Shestia. That's where the whole world unfolded. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded you, as it were, to enter Eretz Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu realizes that it's a big nisayon. So why would you think HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not capable of giving you the koychas hanefesh to be able to be triumphant and victorious and overcome all obstacles and remain on a very high level of Kedusha? That was their mistake, costly mistake. The common denominator between Ma'aseh Miriam and Ma'aseh Meraglim is simply that everything was adjudicated, was viewed and calculated al pi derech hateva. All the calculations are calculations we make in a mercantile, utilitarian way. Can we buy this property? Can we not buy this property? What are the reasons why not everything was rational? They should accept that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide what's necessary because HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides everything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves, worries for every single Jew, even on the lowest level. Gavaya mal gavaya. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Gavaya mal gavaya, will give you, if he told you to enter Eretz Yisrael, despite the difficulty of maintaining levels of Kedusha, why do you assume that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not give you those places? And that was where they failed. Common denominator is there are situations in life which we don't adjudicate al-pi derech hatev, according to the calculations of the natural law or the natural occurrence of the events. And that's what the pasuk means in Dvarim. You saw Kriyas Yamsuf, you saw Yetzias Mitzrayim. No one thought that there would be a Gilu Shrin in Mitzrayim. But the tumah was so thick in Mitzrayim that a Malach could not come unless HaKadosh Baruch Hu came first to clear the path. So there was a Gilu Shrin in Mitzrayim. So you already witnessed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, miracles upon miracles for your health and salvation and redemption from Mitzrayim. So we don't know what the words mean. And in this, you don't have faith in me. You don't trust me. Trust what? Faith in what? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide you the koiches. If that's the goal orientation to reach the highest madregas, don't be afraid. That's Ratzon HaBoichi. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. You don't have the instrumentality to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide you. I won't. How is that possible? Don't ask. You don't ask questions. Because there's a chedek of Torah which we cannot understand. And if we cannot understand it, we're not obligated to understand it, and we should not want to understand it. But nevertheless, we should still undertake the heroic action. The Mesiras Nefesh and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide us the instrumentality to succeed and triumph.